Today, I'm joined by the beautiful Hannah from Bodhi Eden Yoga Studio. Hannah has an amazing background in music, having studied musical theatre as a teenager, leading into commercial music, then going on to complete a Master of Arts in Music Business Management. I met Hannah at her lovely yoga studio in Epsom, where I came to a sound bath session and I was absolutely blown away. The journey that you take people on, the time that you invested into getting everyone to write their thoughts and feelings in a journal, it was really, really special. You spoke a little bit about your journey into music and what has inspired you to sort of take you onto this path. Can you share with us a little bit more about how you got into music?
It's a strange turn of events. Yeah. But I think it links quite nicely actually.
Yes.
Because yeah, as a child, I think the first thing that really turned me onto music and particularly like singing was I went to see Fame the musical. And I must have only been, I don't know, like early teens. And I just loved it. I fell in love with it. And I got the cassette tape. We're very fortunate in Epsom because we got Lane Theatre Arts, very well known musical theatre sort of college.
Yeah.
And but they also run like evening classes and after school classes for like younger people to go as well. And
Yeah.
so a lot of my friends had been going for years. And I was suddenly like, I want to do that. Like, I want to be on stage and sing. And so I started doing their musical theatre classes, which was amazing. That was sort of the catalyst for me really wanting to do it. And then I sort of threaded through life and started to get more and more interested in music, particularly. So I thought, well, I better go and study in it.
So, where did you go on to study, Hannah?
Did 2 years in Kingston actually, and then I went on to complete it at Westminster. So I got the full degree in commercial music. But we did a lot of everything. So we studied everything from, recording bands and the layering of music to mixing, mastering. So it was really a lot of audio technology, as well as all the music industry study side of things. And I started to really like the whole marketing aspect of music.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why I then went on to do a master's in music business management because I liked the sort of more business side of it at the time.
Yeah.
And then that led me into a job at Universal Records, doing ringtones of all things. I then went on to do a vocal diploma
Okay.
because I was really, I've always loved singing. I found singing to be very therapeutic. Um,
Yes.
and I tried joining choirs, but I never quite felt like I fit in. And so
Okay.
it was almost like I was looking for my community and
Yeah.
somewhere I belonged. And it wasn't within choirs, sadly, but actually that's when I then found hot yoga. And when I walked in there, just everything changed, basically. I
Yeah.
found my community,
What a beautiful way to discover yoga was through music.
but I sort of put the musical side of myself behind me, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then it was only in the last 5 years that I started to see like alchemy crystal singing bowls and I started to get interested in the moon cycles and
Yeah.
oracle cards and these things all sort of came around the same time and it all just started connecting. I started my journaling practice at that point. I had always had a journal, but it was an on-off
Yeah.
thing and not really serious. But this was like a gratitude journal that sort of spiraled now
Yeah.
into the cosmos and the moon cycles and things.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also then that I decided I've always loved music. It's always been a part of me. And actually, this aligns so well with my yogic practices and my teachings. So I had to learn more.
Yeah.
So I did a 6 month training online, but I just came into it seeing those beautiful alchemy singing bowls and thought not only do they look stunning, but they sound amazing and they just feel
Yeah.
sort of
It's
great. But then actually they exposed me to so much more in terms of the instruments that you could use in different frequencies and the impact they have on the body.
yeah.
So for me, like it just was an absolute no-brainer. And they honestly doing the full moon and new moon sound baths that I do at the studio, they are like my real passion and joy, and I love doing them.
Bodhi Eden is such a beautiful name for a yoga studio. How did you come across what inspired that name?
Meaning of Bodhi is awakening, and then the meaning of Eden is paradise. So for
Yeah.
me, that's always been a phrase I've always used, which is awaken paradise, because
Yeah.
I believe paradise exists within each and every one of us. And so there is something within each of us. And so I think using yoga practices, using other holistic practices, the sound healing, I think it's
Yeah.
all ways to connect to that sort of self, your paradise that exists within you anyway, because we're in
Absolutely.
connection.
Me, sound baths have always just been so special. I feel like it takes my body and my mind on a journey. And that for me is just beautiful, especially when you start incorporating crystals. I really feel with sound baths that there's something that changes the energy inside you when you're, you know, playing a particular or using a particular instrument. Is
Yeah.
that, do you feel that when you're, you know, playing the particular
Yeah.
instruments, or are you resonating with some frequency?
100%. So, I mean, one of the things I sort of learned on my training, which I wasn't really aware of, is that sound healing has existed for thousands of years, and it really began possibly with the Egyptians, and
Okay.
they used to have chambers in the pyramids for sound healing. Like you go
Yeah.
in, and that would be your healing, is to be exposed to different chants and mantras and sound. Um, but 100%, I think all of the instruments are, they carry different frequencies and vibrations for a
Yeah.
start. And when we think of it on a sort of cellular level,
Mhm.
everything is energy.
Yes.
Everything has a vibration, a pulse.
Yeah.
That's just science. That is actually what happens, you know. And so also then in combination as a human form, when we sort of, what's the claim that we're about 70% water as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, you know, that carries with it an energy as
Yeah.
well. And so when you're playing, it's like the easiest way to think of it, I think, is when you're listening to music, we all listen to different types of music to evoke different emotional responses,
Feelings.
you
Yeah.
know, and different feelings. And you can feel it, like you get bumps
Yes.
when you hear
Yeah.
certain songs or someone hits a certain note.
Yeah.
That's the frequency, you know, hitting you and vibrating, and you know, so yeah, 100%, it is working on so many different levels. And it's, yeah, it is truly healing. And especially if we have things in our body, if we carry injuries or past traumas, whether big ones or small ones, we get out of sync, like our body goes
Yes.
out of sync.
Yeah.
And so we can use frequency and vibration to help try to bring everything
Yeah.
back into sync and into harmony again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the intention behind the sound healing, is that different frequencies will work on different layers of our subtle energy,
Yes.
and our subtle bodies.
Yeah.
Um, but almost the sort of challenge that the journey takes you on. And
Yes.
so I like to introducing things. I say it at the very beginning of every sound bath. I'll be like, I say there's some sounds you will like, and
Yeah.
there's some sounds that may challenge you. But
Yeah.
the idea is to try and just be open to receiving it all, because if
Yes.
it's bringing up a response, then
Yeah.
that's maybe something to consider or to process, or you
Yeah.
know.
It's
So it is
part of the
interesting. But yeah,
learning.
the rain stick was interesting because a lot of people were like, or the I had the ocean drum as well. I don't play everything all at once. I don't play all the instruments at any
Yeah.
one time. I lay most of it out, and then I just see where the energy is, and also think a little bit about the energy we're in terms of the moon as well.
Yeah.
So for Cancer, being in the element of water, and it's quite watery in nature, it felt natural to bring in more watery sounds, you
Yeah,
know.
that's so special that you're very much feeling, you know, the energy of the moon and the people in the room as
Yeah.
to what you're gonna play.
It makes, like you say, I think it really rounds, I think, the experience for people
Yeah,
to have intention behind, and every sound healer should have an intention behind what they're doing
yeah,
and how they're
yeah.
going about doing it.
How did you get into yoga? How did all of this come
My
about?
initial training was in hot yoga, so that's 500 hours. And that was actually in New York City. So that was the initial one that got me trained up in hot yoga, so the Bikram
Yeah,
sequence. And then I started to grow a love of yin yoga.
yeah,
So I
yin
went and
yoga is special.
it's
So,
incredible. And I what I love is how polar opposite they are. Like
Yeah, yeah,
hot yoga is like really firing, yeah, whereas yin
yeah,
is a very cold, passive practice, and it's like
yeah,
you've got to sort of allow yourself space and patience. And so I loved the sort of I guess it was the extremes of what they
yeah.
offered me in terms of my own practice.
So there's a lot more to yoga than physical movement, I feel. And after I'd been practicing for a while, I sort of feel like it changed my mind, my clarity, mental clarity. Are there any particular benefits that you can benefit from, not just physically, but in the mind and emotionally from practicing yoga?
There's something called the eight limbs of yoga, of which there's all these different sort of layers to it. And asana forms part of that layer, the limbs. So one of the limbs, you've got things like pranayama, and then that's moving you into meditation. So the whole idea is you sort of work through these limbs until you reach samadhi, which is enlightenment. I think people come to the practice looking for one thing, and
Yes.
that's probably a physical thing or
Yeah.
a mental thing, perhaps. Um, but then I think as they get into their practice and they start doing it more regularly, I think they suddenly realize how it infiltrates every aspect of their life. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I believe
it
that.
really does change how you think about things, how you
Yeah,
feel
your
about things,
energy,
the things
mood.
you want to put in your body, the things you
Yeah,
want to do. Like it, it's a lifestyle, I think, personally.
yeah,
There's a phrase that I always think about is that it's a practice, not a perfect. So
yeah,
it's that idea that, when you come, it's not about getting the poses right, whatever that means,
yeah,
because for every single individual, every single pose will feel different. That everyone comes maybe wanting something, but I think then they start learning so much more about themselves.
yeah,
Is that much deeper connection to
yeah,
what's in, right? Because then you're starting to listen innately to what
yes.
is going on within.
You've got a beautiful yoga studio that I currently come to. You're working on opening up a new space, and I can't wait to see what you're doing with this because the current space that you have is amazing. All your different classes through your Kundalini, your Hatha yoga and Mandala yoga. What is your sort of like vision? What is it that you'd love to create with this new studio you've got opening?
I feel like right now, being nearly 2 years into it,
Yeah,
that I'm just in such a better position. I know there's so much more to come because I've got
yeah,
so many other things that I know we're going to offer through this space. And it isn't just about coming to a yoga class. It's,
yeah,
as we sort of touched on before, it's creating a space where people can connect with each other
yeah.
and be a magical place for the community to be held and seen and heal if they need to, and just leave feeling better than
Yeah,
when they first
that's so
walked in.
beautiful. For me, there's so much love in actually building communities and sharing and creating a space for others. I think there's so much power in that. And when you can,
Absolutely. And I think it's so needed at a time
it
when
definitely is. Yeah,
we are so much more isolated as individuals these days.
yeah,
A lot of us work for ourselves, and it might be that you don't actually get to see a lot of people all the time.
yeah,
People are now working from home more than ever. You
yeah,
know, there's a lot of isolation in many different ways, and I
yeah,
think that we as humans are not really we're meant to be in tribes, in
yeah.
clans,
We are.
you
We
know, sit
definitely.
around the fire in our circles, in community, in,
Yeah,
sharing. And I think that's why there's such a need for it now. And I feel
yeah.
like it's definitely grown in the last even few years. I'd say that yoga, sound healing allows us those moments to really slow down.
Yeah, and it's there a particular instrument that you love playing and you feel like you've got a real connection to and you love sharing it with people.
I do. I love the alchemy bowls. I do
Yeah,
love them. I just think they have just such a magical sound to them.
yeah.
And and now I've got my third bowl, which I've been waiting waiting to find for such a long time. So I now have my sort of harmonic. Well, I wanted a perfect fifth, but actually I think I've got fourth. but still that allows me then to, use mantra to sing. I use a
Yeah.
technique of toning, which is like the oohs and ahs, because actually one of the things that has been commented to me in the past is someone once said to me, oh, like I loved it when you that was like a lullaby. And I was like, that's exactly why I use it,
Yeah.
because toning's a really powerful technique to use, because people don't often hear the human voice and
Yeah.
in that way. um so yeah, I think having the singing bowls then allows me to layer on like the other sounds.
I love a gong. There's something so deep and powerful, and that really, whenever I hear a gong, I just think, wow, because I feel like you feel that energy go through you.
I love the gong too, but I've got a symphonic gong. So actually, it's
Okay.
not tuned to a particular frequency. It has a multitude of frequencies within it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that one can be really like powerful.
Beautiful.
You can then start going into having like planetary gongs that are tuned to the different planets and stuff like that.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
yeah, it's just there's so many. And then I've got things like my tuning forks, which are
Oh,
also
yes. My mum
well.
had one of those for her guitars.
Yeah, so these ones are vibroacoustic ones. So sort of when you
Okay.
play it, you don't necessarily hear it until it comes up close to your ear, or if you placed it on the body somewhere, you'll feel the vibration, and that's getting direct tuning. So I have actually two here.
Okay.
Um, they're two, that's 111 hertz, and then for healing, and then this one
Yeah.
is 136.1 hertz
Okay.
om. So that is the universal, the sound of the universe. And the idea, those two, the difference between them when you have them creates what's called binaural beats. I don't know if you've heard of
Okay.
it.
No.
And binaural beats essentially is where you hear almost like a third
Oh, wow.
tone that
Yeah.
it doesn't exist, but it's just these two frequencies create almost like a third one.
So
It's
incredible.
fascinating.
I was going to mention earlier, just back into reference with, vibrations, healing vibrations, and the gong and your alchemy bowls. Do you feel that people are sort of not as open or accepting two different forms of music healing because it's not as commercial like it is with your rock and pop and your country types of music, for example? Do you feel sometimes that people are unsure how they should react or how they accept the music that you're playing? Do you feel people sometimes are maybe a little bit unsure what they should be doing or how they should be feeling?
Some people like think it's a bit woo woo. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
okay.
Like, and it's like,
A bit, yeah, definitely that.
but I think it's because it's only just becoming, I think, a little bit more present in the world.
Yeah, still does something to the energy inside your body, doesn't it? With those frequencies.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's actually the brainwaves as well. So
Yeah.
basically, it's trying to drop you into deeper brainwave states that are basically that state before you fall asleep. So
Yeah.
it's a much deeper meditation state that you're trying to
Yeah.
get people into. So you're dropping. That's why it's called the lazy man's meditation,
Mhm.
because when we think about meditation, typically people think, oh, I've got to sit there and clear my mind, and that's like nearly impossible. But
Yeah.
actually, there are so many different routes into meditation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that. It could be a guided one, but it could also be going to a sound bath. That is a
Yeah.
meditative practice in itself.
Yeah.
So
And that,
actually, there are so many ways in, and yeah, if you just get to lie there and don't have to do anything whilst it's all happening.
do you see like a change in people when they first come in and when you've done a sound bath practice or any
Yeah.
practice? Can you quite often see people sort of like releasing and relaxing or
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes, because obviously I'm awake and everyone usually has like an eye mask or a pillow on, and they're sort of lying. And it's funny because I can see the energy of the people that are, a little bit more busy, and
yeah,
I can see they can't quieten down because they'll be fidgeting a lot more or
yeah,
moving around. And then sort of as it gets into it, you can slowly see that start to like dissipate. And there's certain techniques I might use with how I use the instruments in and around people, because
yeah,
I always ask for permission first, but like to move around or use certain
yeah,
instruments like on certain points of the body. Um, but yeah, so then I can see it start to melt away. But it's what I find ever fascinating is there's always that moment afterwards where I'm like, does anyone want to share any of their experience? And usually I get met with like a stony silence, which is fine
Yeah.
because I appreciate not everyone wants to sort of share. And every now and then someone will, and it's really fascinating. But typically it's after, as people are leaving, they'll
Yeah.
start saying, oh my goodness, like, I've had some people tell me some wild things that they've experienced during their
Yeah.
sound baths, and I'm like, that's amazing. I'm like, go
Yeah.
home and journal it, write it all
Yeah.
down, because that might mean something, and you might want to refer to it later or look up what it might mean, or,
Yeah.
because, and this is not saying everyone will have that experience. Some people just leave feeling more peaceful, and you can see them sort of float out and feel like quite happy, and they're like, oh, I
Yeah.
needed that, and they look like chilled, and that's great. And that is baseline what you want everyone to walk away with. But
Yeah.
when you get some people that start having these other things crop up for them, like, it is quite fascinating, but that won't be everyone's experience. And I have to express that
Yeah.
because sometimes I think people like go to a sound bath and they expect to have an experience, and then they walk away and like,
Yeah.
well, I
They're looking for
didn't
something.
feel
Yeah.
anything. Does that mean I did it wrong? And you can't do a sound bath wrong. You
Yeah.
can't.
I love starting and finishing the practice, my yoga practice, with a mantra or an om. I always feel lucky, or I feel excited that I've been able to experience that. It probably sounds silly, but there is along with the practice itself, that is probably one of my favorite parts, and I look forward to closing my practice with that almost as much as shavasana.
Chanting was something that I got introduced to really on my initial training, and
Okay.
I loved it because it connected me back to voice, it connected
Yes.
me back to sound, and
Yeah.
it's doing so much for you. Like when you sing, which again comes back to that idea of, I find singing very therapeutic, is
Yeah.
because when you're singing and you're vibrating in the body, you're stimulating your vagus nerve,
Mm.
which is then, calming down all the body and the senses and things. And so to chant Om is that sort of honoring and connecting with the universe.
Yeah.
And so it's considered to be that sound of the universe, that everything vibrates at the sound of Om. So
Yeah.
on a fundamental level, that's the idea behind it. And so when you're chanting that and you're using a sort of sacred number, typically you'll do it 3 times. And so you're bringing in that sort of sacred geometry as well. And it's these layers that come into it. There's almost like three sounds to it as you go through it, because the
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, bringing in the humming as well.
Yeah.
And I think the point of that as well is like when you're making that sound, you can't possibly. I saw a quote earlier today actually, and it was talking about when you hum,
Yeah.
you can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Can't be thinking about doing anything else when you're focused on your on
I wonder if
humming.
it's so close to the brain. There's nothing else that can sort of enter.
Yeah. Well, it
This,
vibrates everywhere, and it's also taking us like from our, our lower self, which is from our sort of solar plexus downwards. It
yeah.
starts to move us up into the higher self. So the
Okay.
higher self would start really, the gateway is really the throat chakra, which is where we're creating the sound anyway. And then it starts to bring us into intuition in our third eye, and then to ajna, like so the
Yeah.
crown
Yeah.
head.
Do you got anything in particular that you love doing yourself, whether it be a practice apart from your music sound healing? Is there something that you love doing yourself at home or in the studio that you feel grounds you and gets you ready for the day ahead?
Morning ritual is this. I go there, I've made my cacao, I sit down, I light my Palo Santo, I smudge myself to cleanse the energy with the smoke. I then go through my oracle card routine because I now have about 5 billion that I'm like, I'm going to pull from every deck because I love it. I'll then sort of say a little gratitude, sort of mentally more to like, the world, the elements, what I'm grateful for that day. Then I'll drink my cacao. Then I'll do some journaling. And then, if I've still got time, I will then do some chanting, which I love. So I've got mala beads.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so mala beads are like the Buddhist prayer beads, essentially,
Yeah.
but you use them because typically you have 108, and 108 is a sacred number. within it, within sort of the yoga and Buddhist worlds. But yeah, so you do your chants typically 108 times, but you use it to count.
Oh,
So you don't have to actually count.
how-
So this is a smaller version. So this is 27 plus the guru bead. So the guru bead is, and the tassel is to indicate where it starts and ends. So
oh,
then you put it through your fingers. You use that to literally just push the beads around with your thumb. And what you, it means you don't have to count. So every time you say om, for example, you'd move it on one. And then what it does, as it comes round, when you get back to this guru bead and tassel, you know you've done on
yeah,
this one, I have to do it 4 times, so I have to
yeah,
remember that this passes my hand four
yeah,
times. But on a traditional sort of mala bead, it's 108 times, so you don't have to physically.
yeah.
Me, it's just
Agree.
another way to create stillness because the movement is here,
Hmm.
but I can still be still elsewhere and in my mind and
Yes.
just focus on the chant then and creating the sound. And
Yeah.
I do it to a track, actually. There's a beautiful chant. Um, it's Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha, which is basically to Ganesha, who is the remover of obstacles. So it's
Okay.
the idea that any obstacles that are coming before you will be sort of removed.
Yeah.
And that's what I chant to a song 108 times because that's how many times they recorded it.
Something that you can recommend to people at home to do, whether it be a yoga suite sequence or if there's something that they can, a little mantra or a little practice that they want to start their day off with every morning, is there something that is quite easy to do for people at home?
Yeah, I think if it was sort of first thing in the morning, I guess you've got to lean into the energy that you're in.
Yeah,
So if it's early morning, then it can be nice just to do a sun salutation. And
yeah,
even if you only manage 3 cycles through on each side,
yeah,
that can be a really nice practice to have. And that shouldn't take you too long. That's
yeah,
maybe less than 10 minutes to go
yeah.
through.
Nice
Um,
way to wake the body up and start the day.
Yeah, so that's a great one for the morning because that's ideally you do it when the sun is there and or as
Yeah,
it's rising. But similarly, you could do it as a wind down practice, but I feel like something more like just doing a few yin poses would be nicer for the evening
yeah,
just to
yeah,
have that sort of final stretch. If you have like I did a whole practice once on my bed. So like if you get your pillow, if you don't have a bolster, you can just use that to support under different parts of you and just do a few nice long hold twists with the body.
yeah,
One that I call is supported back bend or psoas stretch is what I like to call it. But that one's really great. You basically get the pillow or a bolster if you have one and
yeah,
put it underneath your hips, so underneath the pelvis, so
yeah,
it's supporting the tailbone. And then you just stretch your legs out long and you
yeah,
can put your arms overhead or a grip or whatever. Um, and that one's wonderful after a long day, particularly as we sit a lot more. We basically keep the body in this shape a lot of the time. So actually to take the hips a little bit beyond uh,
mm,
where their natural alignment would be when you're standing can
yeah,
help to release issues in the lower back. It can
yeah.
just help to bring you back into a little bit more ease in the body. So
If someone wanted to start meditating or wanted to relax and they're not too sure how to start, is there a good way of someone listening to some music if they can't get to a sound healing session? How would you recommend people sort of starting to unwind, or if they want to get into meditation, what would you suggest?
find just if you've got Spotify or something like that, um, look for sleep frequencies. I often do it when I feel like I just want to have a really good night's sleep and
Yeah.
just play healing sleep frequencies. That's all you need to look up. I think it's something like 432 hertz or something like
Okay.
that. Listening to something like that, or even a guided meditation, so that
Yeah.
you sort of listen to it as either as you go to sleep or just before you go to sleep, just to take you down a notch, really.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful chat. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely talking about
Pleasure.
all things yoga and sound healing.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's been. Oh.